Hi, I'm Natalie Arnold, and I did my presentation on the psychologist Albert Bandura. So, some background on Albert Bandura is that he was a psychologist who was best known for his social learning theory, the concept of self efficacy, and his Bobo doll experiments. He was also a professor emeritus at Stanford University until his retirement in 2010. So, one of his main accomplishments was the social learning theory, and it basically was a philosophy that individuals can learn through observing and imitating the observable behaviors of others. So, according to Bandura, there are four processes for social learning to take place. The first one is attention, the second one is retention, the third one is motor reproduction, and the fourth one is motivation. He also came up with self efficacy, and he defines it as the belief in one's capabilities to organize and execute the courses of action required to manage prospective situations. In other words, an individual's belief in their ability to succeed. Therefore, their beliefs determine how they think, behave, and feel. So he conducted what was called the Bobo doll experiments, and it was a series of experiments in the 1960s to investigate social behaviors. In this experiment, he had three groups, and each group had 24 children. The first 24 were shown a non aggressive model, the second 24 were shown an aggressive model, and the third 24 were shown no model at all. The aggressive behavior included an adult using a hammer or throwing the doll and using words like boom or pow. The second group had a non aggressive model who were exposed to a quiet and subdued model that played with the doll for 10 minutes. The last model were a control group who were not exposed to any model at all. In the end, Bandura and his team concluded that the children who observed the aggressive model had far more aggressive responses than the children in the two other groups who were shown the non-aggressive and no model. So a timeline of Albert Bandura's life is he was born in Mundare, Canada in 1925. In 1949, he went to college and attended the University of British Columbia for undergrad. Then in 1952, he went to grad school at the University of Iowa and also married his longtime wife, Virginia Vans. In 1953, he begins working at Stanford University. So timeline continued in 1961. That's when the Bobo doll study begins. And then a few years later, in 1969, he published The Principle of Behavior Modification. And then later on in 1977, he published Social Learning Theory. Then in 1995, he published Social Cognitive Theory. And in 2014, he was awarded the National Medal of Science by President Barack Obama. In 2021, he died in Stanford, California at 95 years old. So a global timeline of when he was alive was in 1941, Pearl Harbor happens and the United States enters World War II. Then in 1947, the Cold War begins. 1950, Korean War begins. In 1959, the Vietnam War begins. And in 1964, the Civil Rights Act is passed. In 1989, the Berlin Wall falls. In 1994, apartheid ends. And in 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic begins. These are my references I used for the slides. And thank you for watching.